It's one of those records that just stops. Don't start, in fact. Don't start now. Brand new from Dua Lipa. Guess what? My second guest is here. Welcome, Jonathan Garside.
Hey, hi. Nice to meet you. Thanks for having me on the show.
You're very welcome. Jonathan is a practicing clinical hypnotherapist. I did promise you variety on the show today. Now, Jonathan's just opened the Hypnosis clinic on Regent Street. And hypnotherapy, I think, is a fascinating subject that maybe people aren't fully aware of. And first of all, I think we need to say exactly what hypnotherapy is. It's very different from hypnotism, hypnosis that people might know maybe from the stage or from TV, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a very different thing to stage hypnosis. Basically, your mind is split into a couple of different areas. There's your conscious mind, that's the rational, analytical, thinking, questioning part of your mind. Then there's your subconscious, that's the part of you that's responsible for blinking, beating your heart. But it's also about your feelings and emotions. When you're awake, your conscious mind is relatively high, and your subconscious mind is low. When you go to sleep at night, then you kind of become more subconscious and less conscious. And that's that area there where, for some reason that no one's ever really properly understood nor explained, you're more open to the ideas, thoughts, or suggestions that someone like me who's qualified can give you that will help you to make some changes or alterations in your life.
So people may have seen, people like Paul McKenna or Derren Brown on the television, or they might have an idea of some sort of Victorian-looking gentleman sort of dangling at a watch on a chain, and they're very obvious, cliched, images of hypnosis. But is that wrong, or is that damaging maybe to what you do?
I'm not sure so much that it's damaging to what we do. Certainly, people like the people that you mentioned, they use a version of hypnosis, and because hypnosis isn't something that you necessarily do to somebody, it's something that you bring out in somebody. When you're going to sleep, for example, when you're falling asleep at night, you pass through hypnosis on your way to sleep, and you pass through hypnosis again when you're on your way coming awake again. So they're natural forms of states that we all have in our everyday life. What hypnotherapy and clinical hypnotherapy does specifically is helping people to access those states through a controlled, safe environment. And when you're in that state, then you're more open to those ideas and those thoughts and those suggestions. So rather than being used for entertainment, it's used more precisely to help people to make some differences in their life. I became involved in it because I smoked cigarettes, and I didn't want to do it anymore. So I went to see a clinical hypnotherapist here in London, and it was an unremarkable experience. Nothing really amazing happened. I didn't feel like the world had changed, but and when I came out of hypnosis, and the guy said to me, how was it? I said, well, not really very good. I don't think anything had happened to me at all. But then the curious thing happened, because when I left the place where he was working, then I didn't feel like a cigarette. And I didn't have another cigarette, and I never smoked again. And that was 25 years ago.
Wow.
And that's why I became involved in it and became fascinated.
So you realised the power of it?
Not at that point. I went back to see this guy with a list of other things he might be able to help me with, and he suggested I go on a course to learn about self-hypnosis, which I did, and it was a really long, boring course. But at the end of it, I was the one who was doubting that I was actually just still sitting on the floor telling myself stuff. And he said, and I wanted some proof, so he offered me some proof. He said, tell yourself into hypnosis and tell your arm that it's protected from pain, infection, bleeding, swelling, and soreness, and then come out of hypnosis with your protected arm. So I kind of did that, and I put the idea in a couple of times, and I came out of alleged hypnosis and was wide awake. And he said, right, watch this. And he took a nappy pin, and with some effort, he pushed it straight through my arm. And it didn't hurt.
And it didn't bleed?
And it didn't bleed.
Wow.
And there's no mark. And that was the point. That was the point when I thought, now, this is something interesting. So that's when I embarked on a course of study over 4 years. So something really that was supposed and designed to change a habit actually changed my career and my life in lots of ways.
I was going to say, change your career, because you had a career in broadcasting and then a career in aviation. So you have sort of chopped and changed around. But now you've been doing this now for
Yeah, some time.
20 years or so.
Yeah, about 25 years this year. And we went to live in Sydney, Australia, so I had a practice there, and also one in Singapore, which we still have in Singapore, and then New York. So as you say, I was lucky enough to work in aviation as a commercial pilot for 23 years as well. And there's an interesting connection there, because now I do a lot of work with people who have a fear of flying. So I guess in that respect, I'm uniquely qualified to help people, because I have a technical understanding of aircraft and aerodynamics, but I also have an understanding of how the human brain works, and how people can get frightened or worried or upset about travelling by air.
I wanted to get onto that because I find that very fascinating, and I know you have a very clever way of explaining that, a sort of an analogy for that, where you say that it's almost like accessing the sort of operating system. If your brain's like, if you think of your brain as a computer, then your subconscious is the operating system for the body, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. And so by using hypnosis and hypnotherapy, you can help to access that operating system. Sometimes operating system software can get a little bit, you can get some bad code in from things that we've seen on television. So, for example, it wasn't a particularly good year, sadly, for aviation last year, but, you never find a headline that says airplane lands safely at airport, passengers disembark, which is what happens most of the time. But we can be hypnotized, I guess, by the outside world, by media, by friends, by family, as we go through our lives. And sometimes that code just needs a little bit of adjusting. So you're actually giving your internal code on your shoulder top computer a bit of a reality check and just tweaking some of that code for the way that we live now. Because our subconscious mind is programmed many millions of years ago, and we're not really designed to live in the environment that we have here, in the hustle and bustle of London and the stresses and strains of everyday life. And just being able to go to a place like the Hypnosis Clinic where you can look at some of that stuff and just rebalance some of those things, it helps to just allow people to be more calm, more physically relaxed, to increase their confidence, and that really is the base of all the stuff that we do. And even with things like stopping smoking, people all have an individual reason for smoking, and the work that I do treats the person; it doesn't treat the problem.
It's fascinating. And it's a strange thing, isn't it, that we don't think in that way, because we all take drugs and medicines for various ailments, and we think that we try and alter the body chemically in that way. But it makes total sense in this age of computers. After all, we live in the digital age. Why can't we just sort of access that toolbox and tweak?
And that was the exciting thing for me about that idea of turning pain off, because I was able to access something that I didn't feel I had any ability to do. But that connection between your mind and your body is something that's been long established medically. For example, did you have your lunch already?
No, oh yes, yes, yes. I didn't. I didn't have my.
So you haven't had lunch. So if I asked you to think of something that you'd really like for lunch, not necessarily the best thing or the healthiest thing, but something that's really delicious, I see you swallowing, which means that your mouth is producing saliva. And that's what happened. There's that. When I ask you to think of something, you create a mental image, and it creates a physiological response. If I ask you to think of somebody who's done something horrible to you in your life, I'm sure there are none of those people, but if there had been, then now your heart's beating faster. Now your blood pressure's increased. So we can affect things physiologically within our bodies simply by using our mind. So if we can do that, if we can affect things like saliva, if we can affect the beating of our heart, which we just accept as being something that is subconscious and subliminal, why can't we affect other things? Why can't we affect our confidence? Why can't we affect our anxiety? Why can't we see things in a better perspective? And of course, the answer is you can. You just have to have the tools to be able to do it.
So why, given, obviously you've experienced success and you have success with your patients, why isn't this more widely known? Why isn't it so widespread if it's so effective?
Well, that's the reason I'm here, trying to make it more widely known. And indeed, I think it did used to be more widely used, say, for example, in the First World War. A lot of hospitals and places on the front line used to use hypnosis and hypnotherapy as a way to staunch bleeding, as a way to reduce discomfort and pain doing operations on the field. The issue with using hypnosis for those sorts of things is that it's very much an individual thing. So it's individual to the receptiveness and the openness of the person that you're working, and also the individual skills of the hypnotherapist who's working with you. And it was decided that chloroform, because it simply knocked you out, was a much better way of doing it, because it applied, it didn't rely on the ability of the surgeon or the openness of the patient. Having said that, my belief in terms of people's susceptibility to hypnosis is open. There's one set of people that I can't hypnotize, and those are people who don't want to be hypnotized. So, for example, if someone came to see me and said that they wanted me to hypnotize their wife to forget that she'd found out that they were having an affair, as has actually happened on more than one occasion, then I can't do that any more than I can hypnotize the bank manager at HSBC on the corner to open the safe. If we were able to do those things as hypnotherapists, then I wouldn't be happy running a little clinic in Brazil. But, that idea of being able to hypnotize people against their will is something that sometimes we see on stage hypnosis, because it appears that people are doing things against their normal will and their normal behavior patterns. And there are all sorts of reasons why that happens, but it's really just using hypnosis and also selecting precisely the person that they want. But if you have someone who is open to change, whether they want to become a non-smoker, whether they want to reduce their weight or become better at public speaking, then all you need to do is to want it. And if you want that, I can provide the tools that will enable you to do that.
Explain some of the myths for us. I mean, you're in control at all times, aren't you?
Yeah, exactly. That idea of people being out of control when you see them in hypnosis is not true. You're constantly in control, and I say to people, at any point you can open your eyes. There are no swinging watches or pendulums. It is a recognized method for taking people into hypnosis. Before hypnosis was called hypnosis, it was known as monoideism, which is not quite as snappy. And the idea is that if you concentrate your thoughts and all your attention on one particular thing, whether it's a metronome or a swinging pocket watch, then what that idea is of concentrating your thoughts on one particular thing, it focuses the mind, and when the mind is focused in that particular way, then it means the mind is open to positive and progressive suggestions. Hypnosis is something that is a naturally occurring thing, and I think that's something that people don't understand as well, that they believe hypnosis is something that a hypnotist does to you. All I do is facilitate a situation where somebody can go into hypnosis. We've all been in that situation where we hypnotize ourselves. I was listening to someone on the other day, and they were complaining that they had a cold, and this is something for you to think about as well, that the last time you have a cold, if I ask someone where they got a cold, they'll always tell you where they got it from. Because they always know the point where I was on the train in London.
It's when I touched that door handle.
Yeah, and I was half awake and half asleep, and the train was going from side to side, and I couldn't move. And I remember telling myself, there's no way I'm getting off this train without catching something. 2 days later, bang, cold. See, I told myself. And, we do that all the time. We hypnotize ourselves. I'm sorry, I'm terrible at remembering people's names. Honestly, someone's name goes in one ear, goes out the other. We're constantly telling ourselves that we can't do things, that we're I'll never be able to stop smoking. My dad was a smoker, my mum was a smoker, I'll be a smoker for the rest of my life. And there's that idea that we're constantly telling ourselves that we can't do things. We're disempowering ourselves. And whereas if we turn that the other way around, and sometimes it's to do with our language as well, the language that we use to ourselves. And when I hear of people saying that they want to, or they should try and lose weight, there's so many things that are wrong in that sentence. From a subconscious point of view, when we use the word lose, we associate it with things we want to keep. You lose your place in the queue, you lose your phone, you lose your money, you lose your life. We associate that word with things we really want to keep. When we talk about trying to do things, then we're building in an element of failure there. If you're going out with some friends and you phone me up and say, hey John, a couple of us are coming out on Friday night, do you want to come? And I go, oh yeah, sure Nick, I'll try. You know I'm not going. I've told you, Nick, I'm not going. And the word should means that it's something that we have to do, that we must do. We really should go to Grandma's this weekend. There's no joy in that. So when you talk about people who really should try and lose weight, that's half the battle.
Yeah.
And a lot of the work that I would do with people is helping them to get their own minds right and their own minds straight, so that using positive, progressive, beneficial beneficial ways of talking, so that they're going to, or they are reducing their size and shape and weight to one that's healthy.
I remember hearing somebody, I think they used to call it neuro-linguistic programming, didn't they?
Yeah.
And it was a big thing a while back, and about using positive language. Because I remember somebody saying once you should say, remember your wallet. You shouldn't say don't forget your wallet.
Yeah.
Because if you say don't and forget, then it's negative, and they probably will.
Exactly.
I say remember your wallet, won't you? Remember your passport.
Yep. Yeah, it's exactly
then the chances are you will.
And that's what I teach people to do as
well. So that's
well.
hypnosis.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, and there's a lot of self-hypnosis there as well. So if I'm saying do remember your brother's birthday, you will. And it's that tricky word don't that we all use as part of our lives. For example, if I say to you, whatever you do now, Nick, don't think of a pink elephant. You did it.
Yeah.
And hundreds of thousands of people who are listening to this program also did it as well.
Tens,
because you're using that word don't. But if I say do, think of something else, then it has much more power, it has much more strength. So a lot of the skills that I have are language skills. It's about teaching people and empowering people to think in a positive, progressive, beneficial way, because whatever you believe to be the truth is the truth. And you guide your own way through the world through your attitude and the language that you use with yourself and other people.
It's fascinating stuff. It's Soho Radio Culture. I'm here with Jonathan Garside, who's a clinical hypnotherapist. We'll be finding out some more after some music. Jessie Ware, Selfish Love. I resisted the temptation, especially on the back of all that 80s music, of playing Hypnotised by Scritti Politti. I thought that would be a little bit too cheesy. I'm here with Jonathan Garside, who's a hypnotherapist. We're talking about hypnosis and the power of hypnosis. An amazing, fascinating subject. I can imagine you could talk for days about this.
Yeah, most certainly, and it is, and it's something that everyone has an interest in. Whether it's something you've seen on stage and not really understanding it, and I teach people self-hypnosis as well, which I do on an individual one-to-one basis with people, and that knowledge is such an empowering thing, because once you learning to go into hypnosis is very, very simple. It's like a little program that I put in your mind that when I'm not there, you can then run it yourself, and then I teach you how to write your own hypnotherapy scripts and those things, and then really you're in charge, and there are so many different things that you can use it for.
So people would come to you for a consultation. Take me through the process. What would happen?
Well, the process is generally that you can find lots more about what I do on the hypnosisclinic.com. And then from there, there's a little button that says make a free appointment, and I give everybody an initial free consultation of 30 minutes. And so you can come and have a chat in the clinic in Regent Street. I'll tell you a little bit about how I work and what I do, and then you tell me a little bit about some of the things that you're having some issues or problems with. And if I think that hypnosis is a good fix, and you think it's a good fix too, then we work together over a pre-arranged time to see how quickly we can make things better and make things worse work for you. But I do think that hypnotherapy is very powerful, very strong. Certain other therapies, you can be seeing a therapist, especially if you're in America, for many years and years and years. Generally, I only see people about 4 times. So it's very, very quick, and it generally tends to be issue or project based. And
as after those 4 sessions, is it because you've then taught them to do the self-hypnosis and they go off and do it themselves, or is it that you've fixed it in that time?
Generally, it's I'm seeing somebody, for example, someone who wants to reduce their weight, and then maybe over 4 sessions, then I'm encouraging all the things that person needs, which is from a practical point of view, some exercise, some better decision making. About eating, reducing some of the urges and needs and desires that people think that they have, and also backing up some of the things that are underneath it. So, for example, people maybe overeat because they're stressed, or they'll overeat because they're tense, or they'll overeat because they're not confident, or they'll overeat because they're not sleeping. And so I deal with all the things, the underlying reasons. So I see overeating or eating the wrong sorts of food as just being a symptom of some other stuff that's really going on. And so after 4 sessions, and what I'll generally do after a couple of sessions is record a specific self-hypnosis recording for that person. And that's not something I do while they're there. I've got a little studio, not as smart as this one, but I produce a special self-hypnosis recording that's just for that person. And I give them some triggers. That means that they can use that at home. So after I put those triggers in, after a couple of sessions, and we've made a start on it, then from then, they can start to hear those good words and those repetition of a new habit that we're building every day. Not for the rest of their life, but just long enough for this new habit to get stuck and to become part of how their new lifestyle is.
I mean, some of the solutions that you offer on your website, I mean, they're very varied. You mentioned some already. You can get people to overcome a fear of flying and give up cigarettes, and speaking confidently in public, heightening your self-esteem, letting go of phobias. The one that I find quite interesting is you can help people to improve their memory and perhaps be able to pass exams.
Yeah, I have first-hand experience of doing that as well. As you know, when I was in Australia, I became a commercial pilot, and the exams to be able to do that are extraordinary, and there's a 100% pass rate for each of the 7 different exams, and so you're required, that was my fear, that my memory wasn't going to be good enough, or just I simply wasn't bright enough to be able to do it. So I cheated in the respect that I used hypnosis to help with my time management, my language skills, and so my average score through all 7 exams was about 94%. So I used hypnosis to get through exams. And even recently, as I lived in America, in New York, for 3 years, and had a clinic there. And one of the things that I had to do in New York was to go and pass a driving test in the Bronx. And that was felt like something of a challenge for me as well. So I used hypnosis to ensure that I was driving on the right side of the road.
Yeah, that would help. Yeah.
So, it has little everyday uses as well as big things that people want to change in their life.
So you use it yourself?
Oh yeah,
every day.
Every day, yeah. There's always something, and I use it because it's a good place to go, even if I don't necessarily want to go in there to change something or alter something in my life. It's a great place just to chill and relax and be away from the world. And again, on the course, I teach people individually how to go to a special relaxation level that is deeper than sleep, and that's an extraordinary place to be. And it's the antidote to modern stress.
Yeah, but that's the thing, isn't it? Especially this day and age, people just don't know how to relax, do they? Or find it very hard to do it.
And a lot of that is knowledge. It's about understanding and not over-exaggerating. We often over-exaggerate things in our lives based on the things that are happening around us. Even things like clinical problems like hay fever. If someone has allergic seasonal rhinitis, then that's just an overreaction by the body. Everybody is allergic to pollen to a certain degree because it's an antibody that gets stuck in your mouth or your nose or your throat or your ears. And so we're supposed to have a very localized response to it to secrete the foreign body away. What happens with someone with hay fever is that it's a massive overreaction, a huge overreaction. And through hypnosis, you can teach and you can train the body to react in a more appropriate way to a set of circumstances. And we find that in everyday life as well. We become anxious, become worried about things, and it becomes over-exaggerated. We worry too much about things that really don't matter. And those sorts of things can affect sleep, and then you're in a whole different area of trouble. And sleep is something that I do see a lot of with people. And the issue with sleep is that no one really knows how to do it. It's not like learning to ride a bike or learning to fly an airplane. It's not something you get better as you
You said you just
practice.
lie there and just assume it's going to happen.
You
You
lie there
can't
and
make you don't know what to do you? I mean, it's like
And sleep is shy. The more you chase after sleep, the more sleep runs in the opposite direction. Because you notice that if you lie awake and you get yourself more and more upset and more wound up, the chance of you going to sleep now is zero. When you stop thinking about it, that's when sleep comes and finds you. You have to wait for sleep to come and find you rather than the other way around. And a lot of things that I help with are all to do with the fact that, for example, with sleep, there are three things you need. You need to be calm in your mind, you need to be physically relaxed, and you need to be confident in your own safety. When those three things are true and you're in an appropriate place, then you should be able to go to sleep quite easily because it's part of the body's natural process. If any of those three things are missing, if we're worried about what's going on tomorrow, we're analysing the day, we're thinking about the following day, we're tense about something that's going on in our lives, or we're worried about something, then your ability to sleep becomes marginalised. So a lot of the work that I do with people, whether it's phobias or helping with sleep or allergic reactions, is just helping you to be more calm, more physically relaxed, more confident, a sensation of just feeling and being safe and becoming better at things.
What are some of the phobias then that people come to you with?
Flying is one that I've seen a lot of.
Yeah.
Maybe because I'm attracted, people attracted me because of my flying experience. But certainly I've had some issues with people who go into Australia who have, in fact, in Australia, people have a fear of spiders because of some pretty impressive spiders.
People say that all the time. But I couldn't go to Australia. There's too many big spiders.
Yeah, and it's not the big ones that'll kill you. It's the little ones. But,
I think people worry about sitting on a toilet, don't they? And the thing coming up.
So helping people to become more comfortable, more calm about that. I find a lot of people have a phobia of dogs or cats. But airplanes is one that I see a lot of people have issues with, and that again is just about facts and information. We're all flying around, and there's a noise or a bank or a bump in the air, and we're not sure what it is. Part of the course that I do, which is again an individual one with people who have helping them over a fear of flying, is we do some sessions of hypnosis, helping them to be more calm. We do some sessions as well about talking about airplanes, how they fly, a bit of aerodynamics, and then we go flying. There's an awesome facility in the east of London by Emirates, which is Aviation Experience, and they have got A380 Airbus, they've got Boeing 777s, and we go in one of those, and I get the person I'm working with to fly. I teach them how to fly a big airplane. And once you've realised how relatively easy and simple it is...
Oh, they're actually in the...
Yeah, actually. Well, not a real one, because that would make it rather expensive.
Yes.
But certainly in the...
I'm probably not allowed.
No. In Russia, maybe. But in the simulators, then they really get a good feeling and an idea. And knowledge is real powerful, when you have that knowledge and understanding, because very few people get to go into that secluded world of a flight deck, especially these days.
Yeah.
And that when I was flying, then the most common question that I was ever asked by passengers who would visit on the ground was, do you know what all these buttons do? And I always used to say, well, you better hope that I know what all these buttons do.
The other really interesting thing that you mentioned is, where is it? I've got it here. Sorry. Healing. Yes, of course. Rapid healing. I find that absolutely fascinating. But I suppose it relates to what you said earlier about pushing the pin in your arm and controlling the blood and everything. But I mean, I can kind of get the mental stuff, but to be able to sort of control your body physically in that way.
Yes. Yes.
Tell me a bit about that.
I think it's the ability that you have to be able to influence every cell in your body. So, for example, they did some research many years ago about students who were stressed by having exams, and they used to they took their skin off the bottom of their toes, and they found that the students that were sitting their exams had a decrease in the production of interleukin-3, which is one of the body's main defences against cancer. And so I treat people in an holistic way, because if the skin cells on your feet know that you're stressed, then pretty much every part of you knows that you're stressed. And I do a lot of work with people who have digestive problems and digestive issues, because your entire digestive system is like a separate brain in itself. And being able to access those parts to allow a better balance of things, of enzymes and chemicals in our body. We're an exquisite pharmacy, each of us, that we're able to produce exactly the right amount of many different chemicals and target it directly at exactly in the same point in the body where it's required. The ability to be able to tap into that and use that is something that's very exciting. I did a lot of work with helping women with natural childbirth for it to be a more comfortable and a more pleasant experience, and that a lot is to do with helping them to be able to be in charge and be in control of discomfort and pain.
Without any drugs? Without
any drugs, yeah.
Wow. So no painkillers at all?
No. Again, it depends on what the person wants to achieve. But yes, there's been some extraordinary work done. I'm very proud to have done some of it myself, and the results are just extraordinary. Really, just extraordinary.
It's amazing stuff. Let's pause for another song, and we'll talk some more with Jonathan in just a minute. David Bowie, another record we could have played in the first hour of the show, actually. That was from 1985, Loving the Alien. This is Soho Radio, live from Broadwick Street with me, Nick Carpenter, and I'm joined in the studio by the London-based clinical hypnotherapist, Jonathan Garside. This is interesting stuff, Jonathan.
Thank you.
For me too. I could talk for hours about this. I'm totally hooked on this. So you were saying that hypnosis is a process that's been in use since sort of ancient times, and there's evidence of it being used in ancient Egypt, isn't there? And the Mayan culture, and
certainly
India.
Within most of the original cultures, then there's an element of examples of people using hypnosis. Certainly, the ancient Mayans and the Egyptians had sleep temples where people used to go into these places to just close their eyes and be in the moment. And sleep is, as I say, when you go into sleep, you go through hypnosis. When you come out of sleep, you go through a slightly different flavour of hypnosis. And when you're in hypnosis, you're more open to the suggestions either that you give yourself or that someone like me is qualified can give you. Which is why, incidentally, when you're falling asleep at night, you say, I can't give you the answer today, let me sleep on it. And when you sleep on it, you're giving yourself a hypnotic suggestion as you go to sleep. Through the night, you get the answer, and you give yourself the answer back when you come the next morning. So there's a practical reason why that expression.
When somebody says, I can't remember, I'll tell you in a minute, it'll come to me in a moment. And it does.
And that's language again, isn't it? Yeah. For example, of that last record, you say, who's this by? This is, oh no, it's gone, I can't remember. See, it's gone, I can't remember. Whereas if you say, it'll come to me in a minute. bang, then it hits you a couple of minutes later. So that's about being able to communicate yourself. And certainly these ancient cultures before the advent of the internet and computers, they used a lot of things that we've kind of forgotten. That we've kind of forgotten how to use. We've forgotten how to use and tap into these inner strengths and inner abilities that we have that are so extraordinarily powerful.
How did the ancient people discover this?
No idea. I need to revisit my history of hypnosis from many years ago. I certainly remember that in the early days, in the Greek days, people like Paracelsus had the idea of animal magnetism, that we're all surrounded and influenced and affected by magnets. And indeed, Mesmer and his compatriots, they used to put people in these big oak baskets that were lined with magnets on the basis that they would hope that they would change and alter their behavior by being surrounded and bathing in magnetic flux. And I think it was Mesmer who actually came up with the idea and said, well, actually, what happens if we take the magnets away and we just sit people and get them to close their eyes and talk to them in the way that we were doing with the magnets, then it still had the same effect. And that was where the idea of monoideism, the earlier part of hypnosis came from, because they realized it actually had nothing to do significantly with the magnets at all. It was to do with the language, to do with being in that special place, that different place. And hypnosis, maybe people are thinking, well, I wonder what it's like. I can't really tell you because it's slightly different for everybody. For me, it's not a mind-bending, amazing experience of being transported to another world. It's just a very peaceful place to be. But I know that when I'm there, I'm really open to ideas and thoughts and suggestions. And also the work that I do with people as well is to protect them from the influence of the outside world. We're all hypnotized by the press and other people, and to be hypnotized against that negativity we found in the world, even if it's someone just says when you come into work, oh God, you look awful, you're getting a cold. And at some level, that has an effect on us. If we
so that would work too, if somebody said, not only your own language, but other people's languages. If somebody tells you that.
Yeah, then of course. Yeah, of course. And so I have a little program that I wrote for myself years ago that says if anybody says something that's negative to me that I can't learn from, I hear a little bell in my right ear, just like one of those little hotel bells in my right ear, just to alert me that I don't take that stuff on and make it true, that I just decide whether I want to listen to that and whether I want to take advantage of it or just to ignore it.
Wow.
But from a historical point of view, it's been used for many years, and I think sometimes we've become with all the computerization, we've become too clever. And sometimes looking back at some of these old ways of communicating with ourselves are important, and they can help us to make a difference in our own lives and a difference in the lives that we have with the relationships we have with other people as well. Certainly by learning about progressive language for use with yourself, when you start to use that progressive language with other people as well, there's a real change in people's attitudes to you.
Can you is there a sort of program that you can do or a way of hypnotizing yourself to be able to make sure you do change your language? Because that's quite a hard thing, isn't it, to remember to do that all the time?
Yes, of course. I use hypnosis for everything. So the first program I wrote was to become better at writing hypnosis programs. So
to speak in a more positive way.
To speak in a more positive, and just be aware of sometimes when some of that negativity that we have in our life starts to creep in, just to be aware of that and put it back to where it belongs and to put it into its true perspective.
That's amazing. We'll play one more song and then we'll come back and you can tell us about some of the courses you offer and how people can find out about that. This is a really interesting cover version of Fleetwood Mac's Go Your Own Way by the American singer-songwriter Lizzie. So interesting. I mean, if people are wanting to find out more or perhaps they want to come and see you, how can they find you?
Very easy, just on the web at thehypnosisclinic.com. So very simple, very easy to find. And as I say, in the initial consultation that we do is free of charge, so it gives you an opportunity just to come and meet me, and I talk about what I do and see if there's a way that I can help in some way, and that's free of charge. So you can find out a lot more about hypnosis and how it works.
And you also run a couple of courses, specific courses.
The courses that I run are different to other people, I guess, in that I don't do group teaching. I only do individual teaching. So whether you want to come and learn about self-hypnosis, which I can generally teach someone in about 6 hours, which we split into three 2-hour slots. Or you want to become a better, more enjoyable, more happy passenger, I run a Joy of Flying course, and again, that's individual as well. So I just work with one person at a time, never with groups of people, because I think it's far more effective, and it's certainly quicker because you can learn at your own pace rather than the pace of the slowest person in the group. So for me, I think that teaching works better and is more effective as well. And individual consultations, I work with people again on an individual basis, and the initial consultation for any of those things is free, so you can come and meet me in person and we can chat a little bit more about how it works. And it's very simple to make an appointment on the website. It takes 2 minutes of your time. You can see my entire diary, just pick the slot you want, and it's all booked in, and you get all the reservation stuff on the internet.
And that's on Regent Street?
It is on Regent Street.
And it's on the east side of Regent Street, so we worked out you are actually officially in Soho.
I don't even have to cross the road.
Jonathan, it's been fascinating to talk to you. Thank you so much for coming in.